Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hire Moment Mastermind. I'm Shira Lotzar, happy to be your host today. I'm joined by Vern Schellinger. We are here to answer your job search questions, whatever they may be, on any topic related to your job search, from your networking, your resumes, your interviews, your salaries, whatever, anything in between. So, who would like to kick us off with a question? Pam, would you like to start us off? And it could be something for yourself, or maybe something, one of your accountability groups that came up that you want to share with us.
Well, I was just looking for the announcement. For those of you who may not be familiar with I think most of you probably know about CNM, but CNM has accountability groups. And this time when it launches in September, they will be 10 weeks. And they offer sessions during the day, in the evening, usually have a couple of co-leaders, and really work you through a job search curriculum to just kind of give people tips on things like resumes and interviewing, how to network, different connections, how to make connections. It's just a whole array of topics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the link. It's just a Google form for you to sign up. I'm one of the co-leaders, usually Gail Crockett and Michelle Carpenter are the senior leaders for this. And for those who sign up, you would probably hear from one of them. They would find out about what your interest is, what your background in job search is, and when would be a convenient time for you. So I would just strongly recommend it. One of the great things about that is that you get to see a group of people every week that are kind of all on the same path, which is job search path. So I will drop that in the chat for you. And if I can answer any questions, offline, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Be happy to set up a call. Thanks for letting me do the commercial, Shira.
Absolutely, Pam. We love it. We're always about resources here. All right, Alice, you had put up your hand. You have a question?
Yeah, just wanted to thank Pam for that. I just yesterday sent off I never took advantage of the accountability groups, but it seems it's gone really well still. So it's not till September, because I just sent an email to the info at CNM Help. So you and Gail should be getting that from me at aturnersolutions@gmail. So I'll look forward to that. And then I'll fill that out. So just wanted to let you know, thank you very much for that.
You're very welcome. You're welcome.
And that to look for me.
Yeah, I will drop my my LinkedIn profile too. So if you want to connect, that way you can get to me. If for some reason you don't hear back, I can't imagine that you wouldn't, but at least we'll have a backup plan, right?
Right. And I know Gail, so I just did it yesterday. But I'll go ahead and link in with you now.
Okay.
I've got my computer open. Okay, awesome.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have a question? Dana, do you want to ask anything?
I just wanted to know if you had the numbers in terms of how successful job searches are when you connect with your network versus job boards.
That is a great question. I'm going to answer it. It's interesting. There actually is a stat. They say that over 80% of all jobs are found through the hidden network, through your private networking. Over 80%. That stat has stayed true forever. Only job boards only work about 10% of the time. And the reason is because when an employer posts a job through a job board, Indeed, LinkedIn, CareerBuilder, whatever it is, they are literally opening it up to, well, ostensibly the whole world. Typically the US if it's a domestic job, but as if to say it's everyone. And in fact, especially now with so many jobs being remote, when an employer says, hey, the job is remote, literally typically anybody in the country can apply. So the competition is just that much more exponential. But even before the pandemic, it was still, it was still heavy competition. The point is that when the competition is that stiff, your chances are very, very slim. That doesn't mean you should never apply to one of those jobs. You certainly can. But if you do, it's really, really important to get what we call an internal champion. If you can, somebody in the company to recommend you. And one of the best ways to do that is through LinkedIn. You pop in the name of the organization in LinkedIn, hit enter, hit the people button, and then see all the employees that are there. If any of those employees are first or second level contacts to you, you can leverage that contact, right? So for example, let's say John Smith is the hiring manager and he is second level to you. That means you have at least one mutual connection. you can reach out to that mutual connection and say, hey, I recently applied to Acme organization. I noticed that you're connected to John Smith. Here's my resume and cover letter. Would you mind forwarding it to John for extra consideration? So you get your person to champion you to somebody who's internal. That's one of the ways to get around, sort of the job board thing, because then all of a sudden you're a real person. You're not just a resume in cyberspace and their big applicant tracking system, and you never get noticed. But when you leverage the hidden network, which is really leveraging your own personal network, oftentimes the hidden jobs are there. When we say hidden jobs, we mean jobs that are not on the job boards, which again is at least 80% of all jobs. They're just not there. It's hiring managers tapping their own network. Sometimes they're using headhunters like me, but most of the time they are just literally calling around to their colleagues and saying, hey, colleague, somebody who does what I do, who do you know? So let's say it's a CEO calling their CEO groups, or the head of marketing calling in their marketing association. They're all calling each other saying, I got an opening. Who do you know? Who do you know? Who do you know? Who do you know? So that way they're getting referrals from people that they know, like, and trust. And that's usually a higher quality referral. And so if you're continuing to network, that means you have access to more of those opportunities, right? So you're being thought of. Is somebody saying, oh, when someone says, hey, do you know of such and such? They'll say, oh, you know what? I have a colleague, or I have a friend. Her name is, Dana. You should call her. And that's how a lot of these things happen. Vern, you want to talk about this a little more?
Yeah, just first of all, in terms of the applicant tracking system, think about it. There could be 1,000 people or 2,000 people that applied to that same job from all over the United States. And so what are the chances that your one resume is going to be one of the 5 or 6 or 7 that actually get pulled out for an interview? So that's again why Shira, that's why that stat is pretty accurate. 10, maybe 15% of jobs are people actually get jobs by applying through any of the big job sites.
Yeah.
And then to the second point, the last 3 jobs that I got in my career were I got those jobs because somebody called me from my network and told me that this particular company was hiring for this particular position, and thought I'd make you aware of it. It's an opportunity you might be interested in. And literally all 3 of those jobs, I followed up on them, and I got all 3 of them. I landed those 3 jobs through, and I would have, the key point is I would have never known about those opportunities if somebody in my network didn't call me, because they weren't posted anywhere, to Shira's point.
And just to make it real, so this week, I received a text from a client who said to me, hey, I am about to interview with this particular organization. I happen to notice that you are, connected to to them, whatever. Well, this person who texted me did not know that organization is my client. Like, they would never have known that, but they happen to be my client, a close client. And it turns out they were going to be interviewing with the person who's my point of contact, who I'm on texting basis with, right? And so I just picked up the phone, like, right then, and I called the client. I'm like, hey, I said, I understand that so-and-so is going to be interviewing with you. It was like literally half an hour before the interview. And I'm like, oh, she's great, blah, 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 which warmed up the meeting, right, for this person, which the person would never have known that I knew, that I had that kind of relationship, but you never know, right? And so even though they'd already had the interview scheduled, this hopefully warmed up, right, that interview prior to them getting on board, right? So, and that has actually happened to me before, where people have said, I remember there was this one guy named Mike many years ago, did the same thing. He said he had just interviewed with company X. Again, didn't know that was my client. I called the guy, or I emailed the guy. I'm like, hey, this guy's great. He says, Shira, I thank you for your recommendation. I trust your opinion. In fact, this guy, the CEO, actually had seen me at a networking event 1 week later, literally put his arm around my shoulder saying, hey, can you tell me more about so-and-so? And funny that this individual, the candidate, is somebody I knew through my job search network. Okay. So I was like, yeah, I've engaged with this guy. He seems great. And he got the job. Like, I believe that there's something about having that third party validation, even though I never worked with him, right? The candidate, still, I was able to say something positive. All of those things matter, right, in relationship building. So that's kind of another level, Dana, around networking. is, when you can reach out to people who know you, like you, and trust you, and they can refer you, that's a very, very strong referral. And oftentimes that will matter a lot. It's almost like getting an informal reference. Think of it that way. Because you know how normally when we give references are from former supervisors and coworkers, right? This is kind of like that, but on the front end. Somebody who can vouch for you, hopefully, if they know you well enough. And that can make all the difference with the employer to say, this is somebody who's trusted by somebody that I trust.
Shira, thank you for respecting my anonymity, but she was talking about me. And I was going to share the story with everybody when I got my turn up. So unless anybody else has something to say, I would like to dovetail off of what Shira just mentioned. Yeah, I had an interview, a very successful interview on Wednesday. And I was doing research on the company before I was about to interview. And I noticed that Shira was a mutual connection with the executive director who I was about to interview with. And Shira, we all know, is like crazy busy, super popular, stacks and stacks of work on her plate. So I thought about it for a second and I'm like, I know Shira's probably busy, but let me just send her a super quick text and say, hey, Shira, do you know Karen, the executive director? I'm about to interview with her. And Shira is, I don't know, I think maybe she has a twin out there somewhere, because she responded right back to me, as busy as she is. And she's like, yes, I know her, good luck with the interview. I've already plugged you and let Karen know, that you're great. And it set the tone for the best. And I'm not kidding. Sorry, guys, my ring keeps going off. It set the tone for the best interview I've ever had in my life. I texted Shira right after the interview was over. It was supposed to be a 45-minute interview. It went for 90 minutes. And the call ended with her saying, please don't accept any offers until I talk to you, because it happens to be a nonprofit. And because of my salary history, there's like a little bit of a speed bump that we're in right now and the salary negotiation phase. But it was just the best. And again, Shira set the table for Karen to be comfortable with me. And sometimes that's all you need from the interviewers are nervous too and stressed out too. And they want to be calm, like you want to be calm. And I think that Shira, having connected with Karen, the executive director, prior to us meeting, just smoothed everything out. And we were able to ask questions of each other that were relevant to the job and relevant to our life experience. And it just made, again, best interview ever. So thanks, Shira, for that. And then I did want to dovetail on something that Vern said earlier on the call about no contact is ever too old. And you should, if you feel like you need to reach out to your network, but you think that connection is stale, in my mind, there's no such thing as a stale connection, because I bought my condo a couple years ago, and 2 lawyers, I keep in touch with all the lawyers that I've ever worked for. I know a million of them. I've been in the legal field my whole career. And I invited them to come and see my condo, and we had lunch. And when we were talking about lunch, my job search came up, and one of the lawyers said, hey, if you could do a quick elevator speech and email it to me, I'm happy to circulate it to my network. And to give you the happily ever after to the story, Karen was one of the people that was in the network. So Vern, you're very right. You have to reach back, even if it's somebody, I've known these ladies for over 30 years. If you have a 30-year-old connection, but they're connected, reach out to those people, because they might get you the best interview you've ever had in your life, which is what happened to me Wednesday.
And I will tell you, this Karen, this executive director, she's in the legal world, and she regularly taps her network. Like, I just know that she does that. She's just one of those people, it's a tight community, and she's hey, I've got a this and I've got a that. And who does anybody know? It's normal, very, very normal. So Dana, that's a really long answer to your question.
Sorry.
No, but it's good for
Right.
everybody. That's the kind of question that we need to talk about, because there is power in networking. And this is a proof in the pudding right here.
Yeah, and let me just piggyback one last thing, Shalom. When you said, I hesitated because Shira's too busy. You have nothing to lose, right? If Shira was too busy and she couldn't have done it, but Shira would want to do it.
Oh, I know that. Yeah.
So just, whatever it is in the job search, don't hold back, because you reach out. And the worst that can happen is the person says, no, I can't help you, or they never get back to you, but you got to reach out to as many people as you can all the time in the job search process.
Exactly. Thank you, Shira, and thank you, Vern.
Yeah, I'm so glad it worked out, Shalom.
Me too.
Yeah. All
Okay.
right. So other questions? Alice?
Hi, I can jump in. So and I filled it out on like the form, coming in. So I appreciate that to have us think about what we might want to talk about. But I think really for me, I use the phrase, I have a wide net, but it's tightening the weave, coming in. Yes, you can have lots of contacts, but I'm coming in like a lot in this time period that have a lot of gig jobs and jobs that weren't that long. And I think it's closing the gap, how to close that gap on the resume of having like a lot of different jobs. And some of them gig jobs, but, as part of it is the confidence, but, just approaching that from a resume standpoint, which I will be getting with a resume group with CNM, or if there's any other resources online so that I can put the resume to bed and then just deal with that as I apply for jobs. But and then coming into my elevator pitch, because everybody's been waiting for me, like, what do you want to do? And it's finally after like 8 years that God's revealing, okay, you need to just stop going broad and focus in.
That is what we always
Yeah.
talk about is going niche and not broad. Because and the reason is that, well, first of all, let me give you the parallel. So in general, people like to hire specialists, not generalists. If you had a leaky faucet, you call the plumber, not the general handyman. Okay. People like to hire experts, and employers are no different. They're always looking for the unicorn candidate. They want someone who's very niche, right? Now, not that you can always match all the requirements, but when you put a brand out there that is specific, you're going to attract the specific people in your network. Okay. Now, in a case like yours, Alice, I know that you've been in sales, marketing, right? That kind of world. I'm not sure where you're landing these days, but anyway, but to the extent that you can find a piece of that world, whether it's from your long ago or wherever, that you can kind of rebrand and repurpose and say, this is where I'm focused. I'm making this up. I'm focused on, B2B, GovCon, tech, sales positions, whatever it is. Okay. I'm just making that up. But that you are putting out a very clear brand, not only on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile. That is where people go. They look at your headline, they look at your about section, they certainly look at your experience, and especially in your headline, where it's a pretty clear message, this is where I'm targeting. But to address your question really quickly about the resume, when you have a number of gig jobs, what you can do is, instead of just listing them all out, you can have one heading that says something like, and I don't know what your gigs have been and if they're connected at all, you can either just simply say freelancer, that's the most generic thing, or freelance marketing consultant or freelance whatever consultant, okay? And then you can say either, if it was a string in a particular time, like 5-year period or something, you can say, year X to year Y, or you can say year X to year Y. And I know LinkedIn's a little funky because it doesn't allow you to kind of split up your dates, but you can kind of have a broad time frame. But then in the description, you can be more specific and say from 2016 to 2018, and then from 2019 to 2021, I serviced X number of organizations or in these sectors, and I perform these kinds of duties, that kind of. But basically, it tightens the whole thing up. In your resume, you can actually put the specific date. So what I would do is I would say, in the date section, right on the across from your title, you would say like 2016 to 2018, semicolon, 2019 to 2021. So it's a gap, but you use the semicolon to say, or maybe it's 3 separate dates. That's fine, whatever it is. But again, you aggregate it all in one section, and that tightens up the whole resume. And if you want to, if you feel comfortable listing, I don't know if you're allowed to list the names of the companies that you did gig work for, that can be very helpful. So in your description, you would say, you'd say, provided blah, blah, blah services to, these kinds of companies, and then select accomplishments. and you'd say Acme company, that did, what your accomplishment was, XYZ company, what your accomplishment was, and so you indent it so you can have it specifies the different gigs, but again, it's all under one section. Make sense?
Thank you. Yeah, it's there. And I also heard from another session about, the title area, the headline, and putting the title that I'm seeking, which kind of was a tip, a while back, because I'm going from strictly BD or national sales perspective, but it's more community development, community partnerships, so it's more of the wording of the direction that I'm going.
Yes,
Because everybody still wants to pigeonhole me where I was.
Having
like,
a
why don't you
heading
get back in?
is huge. Having a headline
Yeah.
on having a headline on your resume is the thing. And the reason is that it's like an advertising document. You want to capture that employer's attention in a nanosecond. You're framing the rest of your resume, right? So it's, whatever, I'm making, so, B2B sales director, or, nonprofit sales for business development professional, whatever it is, but it's got to be something that specifies what you are aspiring to. So I believe the resume should be an indication of where you're going, not just where you've been. Yes, it's where you've been, but it's framed up in terms of where you're going, not only in your headline, Alice, but also how you describe what accomplishments you list on your resume, and how you label those accomplishments matter, because what the employer is doing is they're not reading, they're scanning. They're doing literally a 2.5 second scan. I'm not exaggerating when I say 2.5 seconds. It's not an exaggeration, truly. Whoosh, okay, done, and they're on to the next resume. What they're needing to see are the keywords that relate to the job that they are posting. And to the extent that you can, so I'm giving you 2 tips at once. Number one, your generic resume, the thing that you put out to the world, to your network, that has to be very specifically branded. But number 2, when you apply to a specific job, it must, M-U-S-T, must be customized for that role, which means you need to change up the keywords all over, from your heading to all your competencies, and making sure that it speaks to what that employer is looking for, because they're doing that very quick scan. So the branding is really important. And this, to the other point here, not only do you want your keywords to be there, but what kind of accomplishments you share matter. I'll give you an example. I sometimes help people do career shifts, right? Because I'm a coach and resume writer and everything. So there was this one time where I was helping somebody, and she was in the government relations field, lobbying, that world. Okay, so she had that was her career field. But when I sat down with her and we started coaching, she goes, I'm just kind of over that world. So what did she decide she wanted to be? She said she wanted to go into operations. I'm like, this is interesting. How do you take somebody who's in the advocacy government relations world and turn them into an ops person? Fascinating. So what we did was, well, obviously we couldn't change her titles or anything like that. What we did do, though, is we looked through her whole background, and we pulled out all of her accomplishments that had anything to do with operations, budget management, logistics she did, anything, people, whatever, anything that was opsy in its nature. We called out only those accomplishments. We didn't even touch the stuff that was just heavy duty GR. We labeled those accomplishments. Even if it had a GR flavor, we labeled it with an ops bullet, like budget management or staff development or whatever it was. In the headline, mention that she is a, I don't remember if we said aspiring operations professional, but we basically put operations in the headline. Then she went back to her network, and she specifically told her network this is the kind of role she's looking for. And sure enough, she ended up landing, interestingly, as the solo, I think the solo head of a small foundation, which was actually an operations kind of a role, right? Nothing to do with the government relations. But again, we repurposed, we made sure that the resume was aspiring, was toward where she was going, not just where she was. And then she also leveraged that in her networking. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I finally have the aspiring part, but now it's collecting it all together. So yeah, I'm excited about it. It's all going to work out, but thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. Hi.
One sentence
sorry.
tag on before we let Ty chime in here. So it's a very simple example. If you go and talk to anybody and you said, I'm looking for a job, can you help me? I mean, that is so broad, they really can help you, right? So the more you can focus, which is what everything Shira was talking to Alice about, the more you can focus and go to someone and say, I am looking for a job in this specific area. I have these types of skills. It's easier than for them to know how to connect you to other people in their network that might help you, or look for jobs or see a job posting and say, oh, wow, this really matches up with exactly what this person told me. So.
Yep. help
Exactly.
people work help
Exactly.
you.
I understand. Oh, sorry. I understand that point. Yeah. And I don't, yeah, everybody knows I'm looking and I've been, around. It's just, they're waiting for me to come and put it in a nice package and trying to get them to not keep pigeonholing me back to where I used to be. Just like the operation example is key because I could do ops too. So it's that generic resume. And I will at some point, we just have to like let it go. And then I know, with that, but anyway, it's all good. And I'm excited about it. That's why I'm jumping on a lot of these, doing a lot of these workshops.
Yeah.
So good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi.
Just to piggyback on what Shira's been saying and has told me in the past about customization, I take the job title I'm applying to, put it at the top right underneath my name, and then I will also go through the job description, look at the qualifications, and see if anything fits me exactly. If it does, it gets pasted in my resume, or I try to paste it in my resume, so the keywords are there.
Great time. All right. Other questions? Or comments or thoughts or ideas or best practices, things that have worked for you that you'd like, tips you'd like to share with other people?
Yeah, I just think the connecting. I mean, I'm a high E and connector, and here I am on a call, and I would do this if we were in a small group. It would just be great because Pam, we have so much in common.
Yep.
So,
It's amazing.
I mean, and who would have thought, because I'm on her LinkedIn and I'm like, what? We're IMing back and forth. And it's just amazing from where I went to high school in that area, Florida. We're both Air Force brats. She's was born right by where I was after my parents died for the 3 years in Florida. And, you never know. And I think a tip I will make, because I kind of feel bad about it, but, I just have to let it go. But I was invited to a 50th, a major birthday party is what I should say, of a former client. And I was so humbled and honored to be invited because she was someone, we just stay in contact with, but we were daily contacts for 10 years while I was at USA Today, and really, really like her. She's very, very, very smart. And so she invited me. I was the only one, to her birthday party. And I went there and took it as a networking opportunity, yes, to see her. But she's still in the travel industry in that crazy world that I came from. But I ended up seeing two other gentlemen, one who knew me and I knew, and the other one who knew me and I didn't remember. And they're both C-suite level now, and I was like, what? Like, Bruce, I knew you when, and the other guy's like, yeah, when you would come in and see Maria, he was sitting there next to her, and now he's a CFO.
Wow.
And although I wouldn't want to work for the organizations because it was like, well, DC, CVB has openings. Like, I don't want to rep DC, and they, it's that honesty. Maybe this is turning into a question. It's that honesty if that's not what I'm looking for. And I wouldn't want to rep DC. It's very, very difficult. So I'm not bad mouthing the organization. It's just that that's not the fit, but you never know who you're going to sit next to or talk to. Never do. And, and they're willing and ready to help me. I think they just know. He was like, oh, American Express is hiring. American Express needs somebody. And I'm just like, I don't really want to go. I mean, maybe, I need to look at it and take his recommendations to Shira, but I just know I don't want to get back into that world, but I need to submit to these gentlemen what I am looking at doing.
That's right. That's right. The more specific you can be, to, like, as we've been talking about, the better people can help you. That's exactly what Vern was saying, right? You just gotta focus. And in your particular case, it's going to be probably based on industry. So for some people, so just to go back to a concept, you know, I have this idea that, you know, I call the difference between your lane and your community. Okay. Your lane is what you do. Your community is who you do it for. Your lane is your profession. It's what you do. So Shalom, it's going to be, you know, legal assistant, what have you, right? Or Alice is going to be, you know, business development of some sort. So you have your lane. Now, mind you, some people are shifting their lanes. Remember, I mentioned that other person, she wanted to go from doing like lobbying, you know, that kind of advocacy stuff to operations. She was shifting her lane. Alice and Shalom, maybe your lane is the same. You're gonna stay in the same lane, but your community is different. Your community is the industry, mission, or sector that you're serving. So Alice, in your case, you might be shifting from, and you've had multiple communities, right, in your life, but you might be shifting to a different one, or maybe multiples. You might have a couple, three. Say, look, I'm looking for BD work in this sector, or this sector. Now, of course, the less fingers you have, the better it is for your network, because then they can be much more focused on you. If you can have one, that would be ideal. Say, I'm targeting the blah, blah sector. Done. That means that people who are in that sector can help you best. And then you can continue to develop your network and get known within that community, if you're not already, hopefully you are, or resurrect your relationships. And then people are super focused on helping you within that sector. But the more communities you have, the more diffused your networking is, and people, then they don't remember, actually. She said, what? And hey, I don't know how. And then then they just think of you as a salesperson, and then they're gonna like throw everything at you, American Express and the CVBs and everything, because they don't even know what to do with you. But if they know you are this, your GovCon, your financial services, your whatever it is, they're going to be better able to help you.
Yeah. So
Thank you. Exactly.
Vern?
So the founding principle of Contacts Count, which is the company that I now own and about to relaunch, hopefully in the next couple of months. The founding principle is networking is not about talking and taking. Networking is about teaching and giving. And so if you think about the job search, all you're doing is teaching people everything you can about you and what you're looking for, and you know, about your skills. You're communicating your expertise to as many people as you can, hoping that they'll be able to connect you to someone or some job. And obviously the giving part is it's got to be mutually beneficial to both people when you're developing a relationship. And as a job seeker, you might not be able to give back to, you know, someone who's helping you during the job search in the moment, but maybe a month from now, or 2 months from now, or even 6 months from now. And giving back can be as simple as, you know, I saw this article that I thought you'd be interested in, and you email them the article. At the other end of the spectrum, it can be the example I gave earlier, where somebody said, Vern, there's a job opportunity for you, okay, that you ought to look at. So the gives can be very small, they can be very big. And the new tagline for the new logo for Contacts Count is the power of human connection. And that's exactly what Alice was talking about.
Vern, you mentioned a book last week. Do I recall it correctly? You mentioned a book about teaching and giving.
It's his phrase. It's the phrase that he uses.
The phrase that I use. Now, there is the last book that the former owners wrote was a book called Strategic Connections.
Okay, strategic.
Which you can get on Amazon. There's also an audible version of that. And Strategic Connections is focused. It has the 8 competencies that are the foundation of everything that we do in Contacts Count. It is focused on organizations. So, and one of the things that I'm doing is, while that book's great and was focused on organizations, I mean, not everybody today works in an organization. There are so many people working independently, or the gig economy, or freelancers and that type of thing. And so I'm trying to to make sure that the contacts count products reach a much broader, population of people throughout the world. In fact, the first area we're working on right now is an online program for younger professionals. Somebody who's just starting out, and for over a 3 or 4 hour period, they can go through an online program and get grounded in some of the key skills. So, but that Strategic Connections has got a lot of the content, so it's a good read if you're really interested in networking.
Thank you. I think you should also write a book about teaching and giving in the future if it ever comes to your mind, because it's the reason why I like this group specifically, because you emphasize on teaching and giving. One of the reasons why I was hesitant in really networking and connecting to different communities was not a generalization, but based on my experience. It's because some people just like to take all the way and not give anything. So I've been very intentional with what groups I would join, wherein I would see that not everyone is just, because there will always be a mix of those things, but not everyone are takers. So yeah, I'm thankful for your focus being teaching and giving, because it really puts things into perspective. And going back to the topic we discussed a while ago about connections, I'd like to piggyback on that, because it's been like 17 years for me since I applied. So I had to learn a lot of things. And I really like what Vern always mentions in the meetings about teaching and giving. I calculate everything in numbers. That's why I asked about the job search. I mean, the job boards, and also versus the networking, because I started applying June 21st, and then so far I've given 35 applications, and I had 4 interviews, and 3 of these interviews were from the network. 1 only came from the job boards. And I could really see, based on the numbers and my experience, that it's really very effective. But and also drilling down to what Shira mentioned, to be specific, because at first I was just really telling people that I want project management, program management, and learning and development. So it was an or rather for the 3 of these. And the job offers that I received were more on project management, but it didn't feel right. But when I started specifying that I want a PM entry-level role in a learning and development space, that's when I got that specific job offer. So it really helps. It helped me to be specific with what I was passionate about. I just have a question. There, like in communities and in gatherings, there are people who would just say, may I have a copy of your resume? Without specifying what the open positions are. So what would be the best, like, do you give them your base resume on your specific preference, or what do you think would be a good next step?
I think that, so even though we talked about customizing, right, for every opportunity, you do want to have one generic resume that is branded, right? Branded toward so in your case, Dana, it would be, your headline at the top would say probably something like, I guess it'd be interesting how you'd phrase it. You could say like project management professional, and then right underneath it saying, seeking opportunities in the learning and development sector, something like that. So it's bolded. Your lane and your community are right up there at the top. Okay. And then the rest of your experience highlights your project management skills, or as it relates to L&D or whatever it is, but the whole resume needs to hang together to highlight the keywords that are in that space. And that's the resume that I was sending. Of course, it can't be customized because you don't know what the job is, but at least it's in the right direction. That's the idea of it. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Vern. Thank you, Shira.
You're welcome.
Vern, anything you want to add to that?
No. But I'm also a numbers person, so I'm I'm glad to hear that that's the way you follow data and you make decisions and you get feedback based on, hard data, right?
Yeah, because the job boards really tired me out. And there was just a week, almost 2 weeks, that I stopped applying to job boards. I needed to connect to myself and what do I really want. The job boards will really stress me out if I do this all the time. So that's why I needed to see really. And the good thing about this gathering, I only attend 2 gatherings, your gathering and also the career confidence gathering, is that the emphasis on what you need to hold on to, and just stick to what you believe, not really just trying to make yourself fit in everyone's mold, but just like teaching and giving. That's really something that resonates. So
And-
thank you for this.
And understand too that there's another side to this. There's the employer side. Let's talk about that for a moment. The ideal relationship between a job seeker and an employer is when your career goals are aligned with their business goals. Period. We end up emphasizing when, depending on who I'm talking to, whether I'm talking to a group like you of job seekers, or I'm talking to a group of HR people or CEOs or whatever, we tend to let that pendulum or that seesaw shift in one direction. It's all about what I want. It's all about what I want. No, it's both. It's a marriage. It's a fit. And each side needs to be looking at what the other person needs. Okay. So in your case, when you are looking at what your career goals are, understand that they are evaluating you with respect to their business goals. They just are. They will only hire you if you are a fit with their needs. And they should be hiring you based on a fit with your needs. Okay. But they're not on this call. You are. Okay. So as you are thinking about your resume development, your brand, your LinkedIn, all of those things, speak in a way that says to the future employer, I am here to solve your urgent problems. If you're looking, this is what you're indicating. If you're looking for somebody who does what I do, I'm your girl. Okay. Which means you've got to be super clear about who you serve and how you serve. Why you serve, I love too, and that you can put in the about section of your LinkedIn profile. But who you serve and how you serve, meaning your community and your lane, are the 2 things I believe that really need to come out in your resume. Whoever you're speaking to, because then a future employer can say, got it. These are the problems she can help me solve. That's you in agreement.
Here, thank you, Shira.
Sure. Ty?
So in the interview, I've gotten this question several times. Typical questions are, where do you see yourself in 5 years, or what are your career goals? How would you couch that in terms of coming back to them and the fact that I'm probably in the last stages of my career? How would you couch that?
Vern, you wanna tackle this one?
I don't know. I hate that question. I mean, how does anybody know where they're going to be in 5 years today, especially in today's world?
By the way, Ty, are you actually getting that question frequently? It seems to be like a yesteryear kind of question.
Actually, yeah, I just had an interview the other day with an association,
And they said 5
and they
years.
said, where do you see what are your career goals?
Well, okay, career goal. But did they say the 5-year thing?
Not recently,
Okay.
but I do
Okay.
believe
Yeah.
I've come across
Yeah,
that.
career goals, that's a
Where do you-
normal question.
Yeah, career goals is okay, but when they say 5 years or even 10 years, it's
Like what?
Yeah. Well, again, as you said, Ty, it's towards the end of your career. I would certainly just focus on, my immediate career goal is to find the type of position you're looking for, customer service, highlight, your experience and your skills in that, and looking to, make a contribution to this organization, and again, be more specific than that. And I would just answer it that way. I don't know that you can, I mean, I don't know, Sherry, would you
I
answer?
do.
it any other way?
So Ty, because I know your background a little bit, and I think
Yes.
you do too. You have a bit of a story to tell. Okay. Because I'll tell you, look, that question is a normal question for anybody. So what is your career goals? That's a typical question. However, in your case, there's a little bit of a hidden agenda. And the reason is, as you know, you have held positions that are much higher level than the position that you're looking for right now. You need to tell them, you need to overcome the objection that they're actually posing to you without even saying it. What
Yeah.
they're really saying to you is, Ty, aren't you going to get bored in this job? Aren't you going to be knocking on our door and asking for a director level job in 3 months? That's what they're actually asking you. You need to overcome it because you already know that that's the question. So you can say, look, appreciate that question about my career goals. Let me just kind of frame this up for you. As you can see, over the number of years, I held progressively, I held positions that were of increasing level of responsibility. And you saw that I was a director of publications, whatever it was. But I came to a point in my career where I realized that the thing that I love to do the most is customer engagement, member engagement. I have made an intentional decision at this stage of my career to focus right there at that level. You might think that I am way overqualified for this kind of work. And on paper, I am. But that my heart, my desire, my motivation is very specifically right there. And that is the kind of role, this position, even though it seems entry level, this is actually the role that I would like to stay in for the foreseeable future. I am not looking to go back to being director. I'm not looking to climb the hill again. That is not where I'm at in my life. I really, truly desire to be in a position where I can help an organization engage with their constituents. It's really my heart, my passion. I know that seems odd, but trust me when I say this is what I want to do for the foreseeable future. Do you see what I mean? Something that's
Yes.
very, very intentional that overcomes their objection.
Thank you, because when I got that question, I wasn't thinking that way to come back and position it that way.
Yeah.
You need to tell a story.
Yeah.
Because the only reason why they're asking that generic question is they want to get to your heart. Like what's going on with this guy? For any of you, right? I'm always saying this, employers are trying to minimize their risk. One thing that they're trying to minimize is a flight risk. No employer wants to hire somebody that they think is going to be bored in the job, that is going to leave the job in 3 months, that is going to be tapping on their door for a promotion in 6 months, right? They want to know that you really, truly want this type of role right now and hopefully for the foreseeable future. Not that they're expecting you to stay in the job for 10 years, although some people would love that. But that you're not taking this as what some people call a stopgap job. If you're taking it as a stopgap job, AKA just for the paycheck, employers get that. They feel that from you. And then they don't want to invest in the time and the training and all of that, right? Just so that you can leave in 3 to 6 months or even a year. They want to know that this is something that you legitimately want so they can maximize their investment as much as you're maximizing yours. So you got to be really clear when you're applying to things that it's not just for the paycheck, but it's actually something that you think you're going to be able to stay in for a while.
I have a question, Shira, regarding what you said. If an employer would ask, like my background is really more in program management, but I want to have a coordinator role, would it be against me? I mean, some employers, do some employers take it against you if you're honest is about your personal life? Because I want to prioritize like the time with my kids first now in the next 3 years.
Yeah, that's tricky. It's tricky for a couple of reasons. Number one, anytime you share anything about your personal life, you could potentially be opening yourself up for discrimination. Okay.
Oh.
Anything, marital status, children's status, health status, age, where you were raised, anything that's possibly going to touch on what we call EEOC, right? So age, race, creed, color, sex, national origin, all of these things. And I'm not saying you can't share it, but the second you do share it, you're opening the door for bias. Okay.
Yeah.
Because people are people, they can't help themselves. So sometimes, so that's the first thing. Okay. The second thing is, even if you do share something like that, again, because they're trying to minimize their risk, they might say, I mean, mind you, if you said, okay, several year period, maybe, and then people do get that because people are in different stages of life. Like, for example, let's say you're going back to school, right? And you're getting your master's degree or whatever. Well, for this period of my life, I really need kind of this entry level thing. Some people get that. Okay, we know we're going to have her for the next couple of years. You could say it. The tricky part, though, is that they could still be feeling like, well, this is, she's overqualified for this. And is she really going to give her whole heart in it? And maybe she's just going to kind of, kind of bide her time and not really be passionate about this work because she's just doing it for work-life balance. She doesn't really want it. See, Ty's in a different situation. He really wants that entry-level job. He really wants member and customer service with his whole heart. When you're doing it just because of a life stage, the employer can think, oh, she's just gonna, not give her full time and attention. She's just kind of go through the motions. You know what I mean? So what they would much rather hear is, look, I'm in a place where, kind of like Ty, I've decided that this is the level that I'm really looking for right now for the foreseeable future. It's not the fact that it's of a personal nature because of children isn't to me as relevant as I have made the decision, right? That I really want to stay at this level for right now. That's my opinion. I mean, people might have different opinions on that. I'm not saying you can't share about your personal life. And there might be an employer that says, oh, I totally get it. If I were in your shoes, absolutely that could be. So we can't give you a perfect answer, but I do want you to protect yourself because the second, again, you open up the door with mentioning your personal life, that could be, could cause some bias. Vern, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, my thoughts on those types of questions, and I agree with everything Shira said. One of the ways you may make the decision whether to share that or not is based on who you're interviewing with. In other words, and if it's a family-friendly company and their values are all about family and we support our employees and the interviewer, talks about that as part of the interview, then you might feel a little bit more comfortable or safer saying that type of thing. But it's really just a decision you have to make and just recognize there's some potential risk there. And it's a matter of, if they don't say anything about it and you share that, it could be a lot of risk. If you have a sense that they're more open to that, then you can share that and you've minimized the risk. There's still some risk there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's clear enough. I got offered a project manager role, and then I didn't want to take it for that reason. So I'm just preempting that if somebody would ask me again about that, how do I answer it? Because I could see in their face that they didn't really like my answer. That when I declined that I wanted to get a coordinator role. So I was just thinking how you could answer it moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, you could even just say just generically because of you just say because of my personal situation without saying children. Because my personal situation, I have I'm looking for a position that's not going to which is not going to have that heavier level of responsibility at the higher level. I really am looking for more of that coordinator level where I can still give my all, but I will not have to have that higher level of responsibility because of my personal life. In fact, there's also someone on this call who mentioned to me that work-life balance is very, very important to them, right? And this person is trying to make sure that every interview that they have, that they're constantly focused in that and asking those questions of the employer. Let's talk about this because they're used to positions that basically make them work 60 hours a week. Okay. And that's not right for this person. So you want to be, for whatever your situation, I know that may not be the issue, work-life balance exactly, but it might be something similar where you can simply say, look, I recognize that I'm more qualified here, but what I'm really looking for intentionally is right here, which is that kind of role is going to actually work a whole lot better with my personal life and what I need than having this level of responsibility. But I will definitely give my all at this level for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. I'll copy those words too, if you allow me. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah,
So
and
Daryl, you said you turned down a project management role.
Yeah, it wasn't also in
Mhm.
learning and development. And it didn't feel right.
Okay.
So
And you said they were upset with that.
no, they were not, but
They-
you could see it in their face
Okay.
when they offered me that I just explained my situation that I would need to see the transition of my children because we just transferred here, and then I could see the reaction. But the words wouldn't really say they were okay with the answer, but I could just read the face
Well,
expressions.
yeah. So again, Shira always, is pointing out the employer side, and having been in HR for a long time. So
Yeah.
think about it from the employer side. We've gone through this whole process, and you're the person we're making the offer to. You're the person we've decided is the right person, and then the person turns them down, and it's perfectly okay to turn them down.
Yeah.
But they're human too. So
Right.
Yeah.
now they
I
got to start this
understand.
whole
Now
process.
they got to start all over and they're disappointed.
Or-
Yes.
yeah,
Just like you're disappointed
so-
if you don't get the job, they get disappointed when they don't get the person. It's the same thing.
Yeah, so it's both sides of the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I learned that I should be more careful now in intentionally telling them what I need because it's
Yes.
also a waste of time on their end. So from
Yes.
that one
Yeah.
experience, yeah, I learned that too. But I'll copy the words that you said. That was really good. Thank you.
Dana, I'm so glad you just shared that about, I'm going to put it in the positive, wanting to maximize their time. Okay. Because I know a lot of job candidates who will go through the process and not really be authentic about their intentions. So first of all, I know some people who just interview for the practice. Oh, just interview for the practice. Okay. When you interview for the practice, what happens is that, and that means basically you have no intention of accepting that job. That employer gets all excited about you. You go through this whole process. You know you're not going to take the job. They've gotten themselves all spun up and all excited about you, and then you're going to turn them down. So that's very disappointing for them. And on top of which, you could have been the most perfect unicorn candidate that they've ever seen. You've turned down the job, and now it's that much harder for them to find another you, right? Because and they keep the job open for another 6 months because they're looking for Dana, right? So I would, or whoever it is, So number one, don't interview for the practice. And number two, to your point, Dana, making sure that whatever your needs are, they're communicated early. When I say needs, I mean make or breaker, not the nice to haves, but the must haves. So whether it's the work-life balance, whether it's compensation, whether it's remote work or anything you really need that is going to determine whether or not you accept the job. That has to come out earlier than later so that they can make a good decision as to whether you're the right fit. Right? So just be really clear before you start an interview. What are your actual must-have needs? Are you communicating them up front so that you can maximize their time and your time too in the interview process?
Shira and Vern, before I know we're getting close to the end, but before we close that, I just want, and if we need to do this offline, that's fine too. But I just wanted to get maybe a little bit of advice from you guys because the job that I interviewed for that I talked about at the top of the call, I wanted a bike on Christmas Day. I really do. But again, with nonprofits, the compensation isn't always as high because they don't have, law firm budgets. And so I just wanted to pick yours and Vern's brain about, I've already considered a pay cut because I wanted that bad. But if even with the pay cut, they're still not able to meet the salary requirements, do you guys have any thoughts on maybe things that I could offer or think about or talk about with the hiring person to maybe possibly get them to consider me for the job? I mean, I posed the question wrong, but I think you guys know what I'm talking about. Like I want it, but there's only so low I can go salary wise,
Here's the thing. So you have that's really the number here. Because look, they're going to go as high as they possibly can. And
Okay.
obviously, I know that organization. They really are rubbing two sticks together. I mean, they literally offer pro bono services to the community, right? Like they fundraise for every little dollar. You don't get more nonprofit than them. Okay. So yeah, that's right. The salaries are going to be very low. The question for you is, how low can you go? Obviously, we're not talking numbers here. We're not going to reveal anything to anybody, but really think to yourself, maybe you started here, like this was whatever you normally got. And maybe they're like here. Maybe you're saying, well, what I really think I can do is here. Is this really all you can do? Can you cut a little more and tighten the belt buckle a little bit more? Can you do is there any side work you can do? Is there a gig job you can do? Is there something you can supplement with? Because if they truly, truly cannot go more than here,
Sure.
what can you do to bridge that gap? Okay. The other thing is look at their benefits. I don't really actually remember what their, healthcare looks like or whatever. But just be thinking about that too. Maybe there's something in there. I don't know, that you can just play with some numbers from a different line item that they can help you out just to close the gap, close the gap, close the gap. But again, look at your side. Do you have any extraneous expenses that you can cut out of your life to make this work?
Okay.
Okay. So just
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
really look at your budget and tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's
if
total-
I can jump in on that, though, it's hard. I did that and I ended up having resentments. So I would like to toss in to not have any resentments because I'm going through the same thing. Do I really want to cut back? And what do I need to save and have for unexpected? And also revealing for me as I'm looking at this, because I do need to figure out my bottom line. So it's a good question, Shalom. But also I know my God is bigger and he knows my needs and there will be a job out there for my needs. I am tired of undercutting myself and I don't want to come across as something, but, to encourage everyone here. And, it's like for me, I have this position, the same as, with the program, management or PM and all that, and there's nothing wrong with parlaying over into another position. And I'm the same way, with that. For me, I did not do the research as to what my bottom line is. And for me, it's getting myself out of the way and seeking what God has for me in my job search. What does our higher power, whatever people want to call it, because if I go on my own, I fail. If I'm not getting the community and what have you. So for me, it's a really good discussion about it, but I will just caution, it's really scary because to cut. But it's a good analogy of like, am I being self-aware of who I am? And I think that's what's this process, Shira, with me with regards to this is who really am I? And going into this period, I don't like to say end of career because that sounds like I'm going to die. My career, I'm going to always be going. But what am I going to be doing for the next 5 to 10 years? As I slowly, who knows, I might still be working into my 70s in a career position. So I just, caveat that because it's very difficult because there's I'm finding some companies, they're just going to get what they can get away with.
So if I
and then getting into the position that I took a lower salary for and they work me to death. So
if I can interject here and Ty, just your hand. So look, people have all kinds of considerations when they're considering salary. And there's no one right way to consider it. On one side of the seesaw, Alice, to your points, look, there are some people who will undercut themselves, undervalue themselves, just sort of not go for the salary that they could be going for. And for some people, right, that's an important consideration. There's also another consideration too, because you talk about how big God is, right? So think about those people who decide to go into the mission field. And now they're having no salary and they have to raise all of their funds, right, through love offerings. You want to talk about God being a big God. That's like, Lord, I am trusting you. Robert Brandow, who a lot of us know on this call, who's from Career Confidence, he's a missionary in this area. I don't know if everybody knows that. He does not have a salary. He literally, and I say this publicly because he talks about this, he literally stays at people's homes all the time. People just open up their homes and he stays there. He lives on donations. He is a missionary. He is a missionary right here in this area, literally trusting God for every penny. And I say that because God is a big God and he will provide for all of our needs. And there's no one way to do this, because sometimes, like I'm the person here, because you all know I'm a coach. So I am constantly coaching people, especially women, to go for high salaries. Why? Because a lot of women are undervaluing themselves and are like, oh, I'll just take what I can get. No, a worker's worth his or her wage. You go for, right? But that's not always the way God wants it. Sometimes it is. And Alice, it very well may be that is what God's like, go for it, right? For somebody like Shalom, maybe, right? It's look, this is a mission that is near and dear to her heart. And she's feeling from the Lord if this is to actually be more the missionary, right? Be more the Robert and say, hey, I'm providing this for you, but guess what? You're going to have to sacrifice for this because I really want you to be, presuming, and I don't know what the Lord's saying to her about this job, but it's just to know that we're all in a very different position. We have to look at it from all kinds of different lenses and say, Lord, what are you trying to say to me right now in this situation for me as it relates to my needs, right? Is it to be going for actually negotiating a worker's worth their wage? Or is it more, look, trust me, I am offering this to you. It's a lower salary. It's more like a mission thing, and I'm going to provide for you in other ways, right? So,
yeah, it's a very individual decision. And the other thing is to look at total compensation. Shira mentioned benefits, but in other words, if in a previous job you were paying X amount for medical benefits every month, but the medical benefits at the new job you're going to pay a lesser amount, then that'll translate into a few dollars more going into your take-home pay. So there's things like whatever the cost of the benefits are, the contribution to a retirement plan, maybe it's higher at the new company than it was at the old company, maybe it's lower. I mean, all of those things you have to look at and then just make an individual decision at the end of it.
Yeah,
So.
Vern, I hear you loud and clear, and I have a unique situation in that I was part of the buyout at the law firm that I used to work for. So my health insurance is built into that. I don't need health insurance.
Wow.
So, and I did tell Karen, I said, because when we had such a great call, I said, I hear you loud and clear. I know it's a nonprofit, but I want to just let you know what's been built into my retirement package and what I won't need. So when she goes to her finance director next week, and like Shira said, they're probably not going to be able to meet me anywhere near where I was, which I'm prepared for. But I'm saying I gave her all the information about what they won't have to pay for with me because I have a lot built into my retirement package from my firm. So I hear you guys loud and clear, and I'm going to figure it out. And more than anything, I'm going to pray on it because I know that money is not the answer. I've been offered jobs with 6 figures and I've been miserable. Money matches everything for me. And if I have to take a $10,000 or $15,000 pay cut to find the right match, I'm willing to do it. I just need to pay off my condo. If I can do that, I don't care about anything else. That's my only priority. So if you guys can send some prayers up on that one, everything else is, just fine. I don't need to eat out. I own my car. I purchased it with cash. I'm just saying I've been very fiscally responsible, so I can make a better decision this go around, Shira. So yeah.
Everybody's got different priorities. No, that's great.
Yeah.
And it's nice that we're seeing 2 different sides, right? Because people have lots of sides to the prism of what's important. So it's good to hear everybody's perspective.
Yeah. So we'll let Ty get his question in
Ty,
and
and
then
then we'll wrap up.
It's not a question, it's just a quick comment. I've learned through this call, as soon as you know the job is not for you, let the employer know, whether it's in the interview itself or if it's right after the interview. I've had second interviews where I wrote a letter and just said, well, thank you so much, but yeah, this job is not for me based on my skill sets. I'm looking for da 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 da.
Yeah.
And it's been well received. As a matter of fact, got some nice emails back.
Yeah.
That's very respectful.
Yeah.
Sure. Just one quick thing. I think the last call I was on, you had given me your husband's email. I looked at his website and his leadership company. I haven't emailed him yet, but I wanted to make sure it's still okay to do that.
100%. Please.
Okay, cool.
Of course. Of course. Yeah, I actually let him know that you'd be reaching out. So
Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, ladies and gents, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the official part of our call. And for those who want to stay on for the short prayer call that I'm about to lead, you are certainly welcome to do that. Okay, so we will sign off here officially, and I'll see you all in just a minute.